A lot of things to correct out there on the field. You know, got a lot of different guys, some reps at different things. You know, because we moved a couple guys around here and there, trying to solidify spots. Not just like who's starting, but back up or really who's your pair and a spare. You know what I mean? Who are top 5 D tackles. You know, not just who's 1 or 2 or 3. You know, who's going to be in the rotation in games at the wideouts, tight ends, O-line, everything as we move guys around. Who's getting ready to be on the field. And so that was kind of the objective. So a lot of younger guys got a lot of reps. We'll go see the film. There were some good plays, both sides of the ball. You know, now the key that I want to go watch and make sure it's guys making a great play over somebody making a bad play that made somebody else look really good. And that's going to be important moving forward.
Is this kind of a transition stage now that once you get this evaluation done and the season's approaching, you go get into real game prep?
Yeah, this really ends training camp for us. Kind of, this next week's a transitional week. They'll be off tomorrow. We'll practice Saturday before fan day, just a helmets only practice. They'll be off Sunday. They won't practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and that's kind of going into transitional. That'll be, still teaching, still a lot of different things, good on good, getting reps, improving, but also we'll start to work in a little bit of scout team and a little bit of game planning in that time next week. We'll practice Thursday morning in kind of a mock game prep, and then give everybody the weekend off. To give them a long weekend, go home, see their families, take a breather as we get ready to start the season. So it is this kind of wraps up the one part. We go into a little bit of transition week before game week starts.
With the school semester starting, are you up to the full 120 now?
I think we are. I think today, we had some guys. The next, today, tomorrow, we're going to be at 120, kind of moving forward now with guys on the roster.
How has Reese grown into that spot at right tackle in the last few weeks?
He's coming along. I see some really good things sometimes, and then some mistakes that we got to get fixed. Here he is. He's going to be he's going to have the opportunity to play an awful lot as a redshirt freshman, and so you see him do things that you say, wow, he's going to have a great future here for us, and then still make some mistakes that we got to get cleaned up that we can't have. As we get into games. So he's going to get thrown into the fire quickly, and we've got to see how he responds.
I'd imagine that inconsistency is typical of linemen his age.
Well, it's just tough, he is a young player. He's still developing, and so it's, but you see a lot of positives with him, and what we got to do is just, limit the hopefully the errors of the learning curve as he's getting ready to kind of be the every down player for us at right tackle.
Who would you say had the upper hand tonight, the offense or the defense?
I don't know that. We did more of a game scrimmage, so there's different times. There's times probably where the offense didn't score and the defense stopped them, but maybe didn't win because they gave up too many yards, and all of a sudden you punt, and then your corresponding offense is coming in back to the wall. You know what I mean? And so it's hard to say. I don't know. There are some positives on both sides of the ball. I like what I see. The biggest one for me is who our playmakers are going to be on offense. Is going to be big. And then for me, defensively, is finding, as I keep telling Todd, I want to find 30 guys. Let's find 30. Or what's our number that we can go out and roll guys through, and so we can be as aggressive as we want to be. And I really like the way our defense is coming along, and hopefully, creating that depth for us of guys to really come wave after wave attacking you.
We may have asked you more about kickers the last few weeks than ever, but has anybody separated themselves place kicking and things yet?
Still battling at that part. Today, did we kick many field goals? It was like a weird deal. We didn't end up kicking field goals today, many field goal attempts. So a couple extra points here and there. At the end had Tucker, some guys just kick a couple just to get some field because we're in the stadium. But I think the competition's going pretty well. We'll have to see. I mean, if I had to give an edge, probably Tucker Day's got the edge today, but I mean, it's pretty close, so it kind of changes daily.
But at what point do you want somebody to just claim it and you be confident and say that's the guy?
2 weeks from Saturday. I'm not. You know, I mean, it's not like that guy's stepping in the huddle like the quarterback, or the middle linebacker leading the whole show. He's got to run out there and put the ball through the uprights. So, you know, I mean, that competition's going to go right through, might even go through pregame. We got all these guys. I can't tell you how they're going to react after the dog walk. You know what I mean? They're going to come in and be like shell-shocked after the dog walk, you know, so it's all new for all of them. So, that's not something that's going to be, that has a huge effect on the team. That decision of who's going to go out there and kick, you know, I mean, they've all done pretty well, you know, so I think, if you look at our players, probably have a lot more confidence in the kickers than they did in the spring at this point, and just because they've watched them perform and be pretty impressive in practice.
You mentioned identifying some offensive playmakers. Who are some of those guys that have stood out to you so far?
We got to see, you know, I mean, Jordan Thomas at times is coming along a little bit better, but he's really up and down, inconsistent right now, and we got to see the consistency out of him. You have your guys you already know and you expect, you know, with, when you're looking at Harris and Donald Gray and Gabe Miles, guys that have already been around, you know, making plays for us. But, you know, those guys, I see some of the backs, some good runs, you know, with Nick Gibson and Kylan, and even D. Lee being a physical between the tackles, runner, those things, you know, and it's Dedrick Thomas continues to really take big steps forward, and Jesse Jackson takes steps forward. So, you know, it's good to see those guys kind of get to what we expected them in recruiting, where we expected them to be at recruiting.
Has the consistency improved from the younger guys from last week to this week?
Still getting there, you know, because it is consistency, because I see them do some things sometimes, like, okay, they're ready to go. Then I watch, like, 2 plays later, like, we can't put that guy on the field right now. And, you know, and that's what's kind of frustrating, you know, but that's a lot of times what happens with these young guys is, you know, I mean, is they're talented, but they got to understand that the intricacies of the game. You know, it's not about making one special play, it's about the consistency of making every play.
With the departure of Fred Ross, how has Donald Gray stepped up in that leadership position?
He does a great job. I mean, he's just a great leader, you know. I mean, he's a tremendous work ethic guy. He's not afraid to be vocal. He's been around the program for a while and understands the standards and expectations, and, really does a good job as a leader.
How important is it for y'all to find a number 2 option to take pressure off of him the way Gray did Ross last year?
It's big, and you know what, for us, but I think part of our offense, we're most successful when we can spread the ball around everybody. That's when we're most successful. If you look when we've had our biggest years passing and most successful, efficient years passing, I don't know that we have the one go-to guy. Now we might have a guy that has a big game one week, and the next week they're doubling him. And so somebody else has a big game, and I think that's what's important to us is not just the one guy, it's multiple guys to be able to keep it balanced and spread out.
I feel like there are several linebackers with high expectations for their individual play. Has that collective linebacker unit stood out in any way thus far?
Yeah, I think, I'm pleased with where Des Harris is really, coming along. I think, he had some injuries early in his career. As a guy who was a high school quarterback, had to kind of grow into the position. Always knew he was really athletic, but to grow into the position, and so some of that maybe was setback. But I'm really starting to see him become a guy that could be one of the better linebackers in the SEC this year.
You've mentioned a rotation in the defensive backfield several times. Is there a difficult nuance to manage between getting 3 or 4 guys ready to play the same position there?
I hope not, because I want them all to roll in and out. To me, you're most successful on the final drive of the game that the guys that are on the field have only played 35 to 40 plays, and they're pretty fresh, and they can fly around and go make things happen out there on the field. I'm talking not just in the back end, 11 guys. I always go back with that in a key moment a couple years ago. We were playing Auburn here in a big game. They were driving. We're up a couple scores, and they're trying to go 2-minute. And I think they were number 2 or number 3 in the country. and they're driving. In their final drive, we had a big sack by Preston Smith. Chris Jones tips a ball, and it's picked off by Justin Cox to kind of seal the victory for us in the end. Those guys, none of them have played 40 plays in that game. Despite being big time, like starting players for us in a big game, they were all in the lower reps. So they were so fresh at that time of the game to go make that play to win the game. That's why I keep stressing with our defense. Because I go and I tell the other story. We had a double overtime loss, I think it was here a long time ago. I think that was that game, and I might be off, with my storytelling. But the fact is, like, Charles Mitchell had played 105 snaps, defense and special teams. Well, how do we expect him to make a game-winning play in double overtime on snap 106? You know what I mean? I mean that's close to 2 full games he played in a 3-hour span, and so we can't be there. We can't put our guys in that situation. That to me is where we have to grow that depth and have those guys ready to play.
Are we going to get a roster soon? And I saw that Michigan doesn't have a roster out yet. Are you and Harbaugh gaining some
there we go.
advantage?
I'm channeling my inner Jim Harbaugh. We don't have a roster, right? I'm sure we'll print one up at some point here when we get going. The thing about rosters, we'll have one for the game day, and it's not that big a deal. You guys know most of the guys that are on the team, right? Fitz is here. He's playing. There's not I'm not shocking anybody, but I deal with what jersey number am I wearing, and there becomes a lot more headaches with it sometimes than it's worth for me to even deal with, and it's not that big. You guys know the guys that are playing, so whatever. I haven't intentionally pulled a Jim Harbaugh. They don't do one.
They haven't put one out yet. They're
Nice.
But you're the only one in the SEC without one.
So.
Oh,
Jim Harbaugh gets all this credit of being some type of.
I'm just trying to give you some.
I'm hoping that
the SEC
we might have.
guys,
We're talking about doing spring ball in Cancun next year too.
Is there a media plane to that?
I think they're going to where are they going to Paris? We were thinking about Cancun.
You got to keep up.
So much for baseball coverage.
I'm going to channel my inner Harbaugh.
Now, actually, somebody filed a Freedom of Information Act trying to get Michigan's roster today. Is how stupid it's become.
Yeah, I imagine we'll get one out. It just like I said. There's little things and stuff that I'm calling. So I have a parent call me and say, "I thought he was going to be this jersey number to and a guy that you probably might even know is on the team, and it's 5 minutes. I didn't need to do that at that moment. So just making sure everything's exact. Everybody knows who their number is going to be, so it doesn't become an issue and all that.
They're just trying to help gain brokerage sales.
That's it. Yeah, we can't tell a player about a program.
There have been some rumblings about Brian Cole as well, as far as not being academically eligible to play or needing to take a red shirt. Is there any clarity that you can provide there?
Yeah, he's going to have to take a academic red shirt this year.
Why would he have to take a red shirt even if he was allowed to enroll to the school? So I'm just kind of confused, how that works.
There's different standards within the academic red shirt standard now. So the eligibility standards and the to qualify and to play are different level standards in both junior college players and high school players now.
So did you know this when he signed, or is it something that had to...
No, because his final grades hadn't come out. So, but we knew that there was a chance that would happen.
Gotcha.
But there was a lot with him too going on because he only played. There was a lot of whether or not he had played his freshman year or not. And Michigan came out with a ruling that he had, even though I think he tore his ACL that year and played in the first game only, which would qualify him to be an academic redshirt, but they qualified him as not. So he has a redshirt year available, and that's when it comes out. There's the adjusted scale that they approved 2 years. That's something last year was the first year it was in effect. So this is its second year.
You guys signed a handful of JUCO guys. So is there anybody else that you were worried about, or is there anybody else that may arise, that issue?
Yeah, we're waiting on one other guy,
Okay.
on some clarity on some things.
Gotcha.
For him. Again, it'd be the similar type deal that he was he qualifies, but within the new standards, there's mandatory academic red shirts for, I don't think any of our freshmen this year fall in that category.
And for that other guy, when do you anticipate like getting a final word on what's
Hopefully in the next week.
Okay.
So hopefully, this week or next week. So, but like I said, I don't think for I'm not even sure Cordavian Suggs, he might fall in that for high school. There's the standards changed within the NCAA over for last year's signing class. This is the second year of it. So you can qualify, but you still would have to take an academic red shirt if you are not at a certain level. If that makes sense.
It does. I didn't know the rule though, so I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to
it
do some more
changed.
stuff.
It changed over a year ago.
Gotcha.
This might not be something you've thought about yet since it's kind of new, but does not having to prepare him for a season change how you work with him, moving from safety to corner? I know that's been talked about.
Brian?
Yeah.
I think a lot for him, I think he's done a really good job in embracing it, is he's looking, in training camp, he's still getting reps. So they'll transition. If a guy that's kind of redshirt is not going to get in the game, he's going to transition a little bit moving out of training camp and be on the scout team. But he's really handled it into preparing himself for, January of next year of being ready to step in and hopefully be a starter for us.